Recording? Okay, so welcome again to Advanced Cultivation Techniques. Um, I am going to be letting people in as they come in, but this presentation, just so you know, before we get started, is being recorded as well as um, if you have any questions, you can chat them. I will go back and answer them in a formal Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Also, my name, a little bit about me. My name is Sabrina Walker Hernandez, and I studied political science and public administration, and I obtained a nonprofit management certification from Harvard Business School. And for the last 25 years, I've worked in the nonprofit industry in direct services, operations, and executive leadership. Now, in 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I felt that I needed to retire. And since then, I've been helping people take their nonprofits to the next level with fundraising and board training. And people always ask me, why do you leave the part in there about being diagnosed with cancer? Well, I say that is the whole reason why I started my nonprofit, why I started my company supporting World Hope. It was because I want to support overworked, overwhelmed, sometimes often underpaid nonprofit professionals. And I have a host of experience, 25 years of documents. I'm a master trainer for Boys and Girls Club of America. I facilitated across the world. And so I wanted to be able to give back. And a lot of those services that I provide are at no cost. So if you're on my mailing list, you know about the VIP library that has all types of sample documents around board, around marketing, and around resource development. So I encourage you to look into those things, as well as if you are part of my Facebook group, Nonprofit Professionals Exchange, you know that I go in and I do live coaching Thursdays and I answer any question that you may have. And if I don't have the answer to it, I research it and get back with you on it, because I know as a busy professional, sometimes you just don't have the capacity to research. You're putting out fires and other things happen. So I like to make sure that I can be of assistance to you in that area. And so this is what I do. I do workshops, I do board retreats, I do webinars, I do coaching, and I do consulting. And today, who will benefit from this webinar is nonprofit CEOs or development staff, if you have a development staff, looking to use cultivation in fundraising, or nonprofit board members looking to use cultivation and fundraiser, or anyone really looking to enhance their fundraising experience. And so the goal for this webinar is to understand and be able to apply tips for successful cultivation, be able to utilize a prospect grading grid to identify top prospects and map cultivation, and know the critical importance of documenting contacts with donors and apply what you learned to donor scenarios. So with that in mind, this is what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask that you focus. I'm going to say that you are worth it. Close your emails, close the 20 browsers that you have open right now, close the door, and ask the kids not to kill themselves or each other for the next hour. That's what I'm going to ask you to do. So let's focus. And it won't be for an hour, it'll be like 45 minutes tops. That's my promise to you. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the resource development cycle. And so the resource development cycle is a framework that kind of shows you the big picture on the 6 stages to building your donor pipeline. And it's really a process map that gives you a visual. This is especially good for those that are new to fundraising. It gives you a visual representation of the one path to developing relationships with prospective donors. So let's talk about this cycle or this framework. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to identify, which is stage 1, you're going to be identifying who your potential donors are. Once you identify, you do a brainstorming session, you have some names, you go through a sphere of influence process with your board to come up with some names. Then you're going to qualify those people. And what do we mean by qualify? Do they have the capacity to give? Do they have the affinity towards your organization? Do several other things that we're going to get into. And then we talk about cultivation, which this is advanced technique for cultivation. And cultivation is actually one of my favorite parts of the resource development cycle. I love getting to know people. I love cultivating those relationships. So I have a little bias towards it, but you need all of these steps. You need to be able to identify, qualify, cultivate, and then ultimately solicit your donors. And then once you solicit your donors, there's stage 5, which is the process. And most of us are impatient around the process. That's giving the donor time to see if they want to write that check. Some donors, you built such a great relationship with them, you have the meeting, they write the check right then and there. Some donors say, I need to check with my spouse, or let me think about some things, or let me check with this source or that source. And so that's the process where you have to be kind of patient and give them the time to have that process. And then stage 6 is stewardship. I will not get into stewardship today, but I will say this. This is one of my soapbox moments. Nonprofits are horrible at stewardship, and that is the thank you and the recognition. For some reason, we don't do a very good job at thanking people and recognizing them. So we need to work on that. I will say, why is a soapbox thing for me is because I've given to several different organizations over the last couple of months, and I think I've received 2 fabulous thank yous out of 7. So the other ones got my gift and I never heard anything from them again, or they got my gift and I never heard anything except for the time that they wanted another gift, which is not good. So you have to make sure that you steward people, and then you just kind of repeat the phase. You start all over again from 1 to 3, and that's all relationship management. That's all building that relationship. So it all starts at that point. This is your visual for resource development. So when you're thinking about a donor, this is the track that you're taking them on. And so be very aware of that. So what is cultivation? So cultivation is everything that happens between the time that you identify a person as a donor for your organization and your first ask. It is the actual building of the relationship. And so you have to intentionally build the relationship, because that's what cultivation is. And I say fundraising and cultivation is like dating, and dating can be very awkward. So if you see the graphic here, it's kind of funny. I can't wait to meet you tonight. I know the anticipation is killing me. We are going to have a great time. I know it. And then the person says, I'm going to hold you hostage. And they say, oh God, excuse me. And no, that's not what I meant. I'm going to hold you to that. And so something's went wrong, and, oh wow, and they go, I'm not a psycho. So it's just like dating, you those misinterpretations between the text and the comments and all of that. So it's really getting to know someone. And that's a huge part of the process. And so when you're building a relationship, what are you really focused on? You're focused on building trust, building respect, mutual goals, having appreciation. You're focused in on communication, so that you don't have those miscommunications and those missed opportunities. So always keep that in mind. And so cultivation, again, is growing relationships one person at a time, really focused in on that. And so I want you to I'm gonna give you a minute to do a little self-reflection. So you are in the nonprofit world, and I want you to think about this. I want you to think about a gift that you have made. What organization did you support? What was your primary motivation for supporting that organization? What was your secondary motivation? And how did you feel making that gift? So spend just a few seconds just kind of sitting in that. And when you're done with that self-reflection, the whole goal is you want to ensure that your donors have that sense of satisfaction. So if you like in the comments, how did you feel after making that gift? You can put that in the comments just to get it out of your system, because that's the journey we want to take our donors on. We want them to feel good. We want them to feel very proud of making that gift, very honored and humbled in supporting your organization. So when you are a donor and you feel that way, that is exactly what you want to make sure that your donors feel. Yes, Monica, humble. That's how I feel every time I'm able to give a gift. I feel humbled that I am able to support and invest in my neighbor and in my community. And so that's the journey we want to take our donors on, our prospective donors. So when you are looking at prospective donors, you use the 4 R's. You're going to spend a lot of time in research, 25%. And that's when you are identifying and qualifying. You're going to spend 60% in romance. Now, romance is the cultivation process. And that's what we're here to talk about, the advanced techniques of cultivation. And then 5% of the time is going to be in the request. That's the ask, the actually making of the ask and building, getting the meeting and going in and making that and following up. And then 10% is going to be in recognition. And oftentimes, again, soapbox moment, we don't spend enough time at all in recognition. So as you can see, 60% of the time is spent in cultivation. 60% of the time is spent in getting to know your donors, your prospect donors, getting to know what makes them tick, because you want to make the right ask of them. You don't want to go in and talk about tax benefits to someone who doesn't care about tax benefits, who really care about, if your mission is hunger, who really care about the mission of feeding people. You want to make sure that you're talking their language and that they are the center of the story that you're telling, and that they are the you are giving them the right options when you go to visit them. So the top 10 tips for cultivation. It is very important that you know what those tips are. When you're with the organization, it is everybody's job to cultivate, from the board to the staff. Everybody has a role in the cultivation process. I will not forget, and I will share this story. If a potential donor calls the office and the person who answers the phone has an attitude, well, they just hurt your chances at cultivation, right? And that's the person who answers the phone. That's the receptionist. So you need to make sure that everybody understands that fundraising and cultivation is a part of their job. It is strategic. That is, you do sit down and you map out, who are my top prospects, and you focus your energy in on those top prospects. You don't waste your time, because your time is valuable. And so you want to make sure that you're being very strategic about this process. You want to make sure that you're being systematic about it as well. You want to make sure that it's coordinated. And when I say coordinated, that means, there is not 3 or 4 board members and a staff person trying to court this one donor. You don't want to overwhelm the donor. You want the donor to have one contact within the organization, someone who's intentionally cultivating that relationship, so that 50 people are not calling that same donor. That's not going to be a good donor experience. So you want to make sure their experience is well-rounded. It's equal opportunity. No one's off the table. It isn't just personal interactions. You're actually building a relationship, and you're hoping that it's a long-term relationship, because ultimately you want to move them through the ladder. You want them to be a donor, and not only a donor, you might want to move them up to being a reoccurring donor. And ultimately, you may want to move them up to be a legacy gift. So it is an ongoing process of building a relationship. It can be unexpected. Some relationships develop faster than others. Or sometimes, as you're learning about the potential donor, you may discover something that you had no idea about, and that might change your perspective on how you're going to approach it. So it leads to an ask. You cannot be in the dating phase forever. That's why I love to say that fundraising is like dating. If you're cultivating, you go on that first date. You get to know them. Then you kind of, I'm gonna use old-fashioned terms. You start courting. Then you go steady. But who wants? And you may ask them to marry you. But who wants to be engaged forever? Ultimately, you got to pop the question. You got to ask for that gift. So don't leave them in that cultivation phase forever. Also, when you're talking cultivation and building relationships, remember that corporations, foundations, and individuals are similar because who runs corporations? Who runs foundation? It's people. And so you still have to bring those same strategies of building relationships when you're talking about corporations and when you're talking about foundations. So again, don't go into a corporation that you've never met and ask them for a gift. You have to get to know them. You have to get to know them. You have to get to know them. You have to ask the right questions. You have to introduce yourself. You just can't make the assumption that because they're a corporation that they are going to magically give to you because that's what they're supposed to do. You really do have to get to know them. And the same path that you take for an individual is the same path that you take for a corporation and a foundation. And then cultivation should have a budget. And we're not talking about a huge budget, but we are talking about a budget. And that budget, think about this as you're getting to know people. This is one of the things that I would do as I'm visiting people in their office, and I see that they went to A&M. I'm in Texas, or I see that they went to UT, or I see that they're into horses, or whatever it is. You might be, as the CEO at the time, if I was out and I saw something that I thought would make a token gift for them, I would purchase that out of my pocket. And sometimes you want to make sure that your organization has a budget for that because, stopping by someone's office and saying, you know what, I saw this and I thought about you. I don't need a meeting. I just wanted to drop this off and make sure that you got it. Or driving to those meetings, that's mileage. So that's a part of the budget as well. So it's not a huge budget, but as you embrace this and you move forward, know that there are some costs to it. There might be mileage to set up the meeting. If you're taking a potential donor to lunch, I don't care how rich they are. I always if I invited you to lunch, I'm going to be the one that buys you lunch, and they will appreciate that because they're oftentimes footing the bill. So if you invite someone to lunch, you need to make sure that you have a means for paying for it. If you want to buy someone a gift that reminds you of them and drop it off, you have to have a means of paying for it. And of course, there's mileage that's involved because you're more than likely using your personal vehicle. So let's talk about the prospect rating grid. Every time I saw this grid, my eyes would glaze over. It looks like math to me. But this is a part of being systematic and strategic. And so basically what you're doing is you're actually rating your donors. So you're based on when you are identifying and qualifying people, you're really going to look at your nonprofit record and other criteria. And so some of those things, some of you may have the CRM systems, which is the customer relations management systems, where you're keeping track of your donors and how much they give. And so you're able, it's very easy for you to pull data to say, okay, this person has given this in the past, or they haven't given this in the past. And if you don't have an official system, don't worry. For years, I used Excel. It's a nightmare, but I did it. And if Excel is also a system, it's probably not the most robust system. And if I can encourage you to invest in a CRM, I am going to encourage you to do that. I know that Bloomerang has a light version that is free for up to 250 donors in the database. So I know a lot of you are smaller nonprofits. So if you're looking for something free at no cost and you have less than 250 donors, I would suggest Bloomerang Light, and that's BLOOMERANG, and I'll drop that in the chart. So basically, how do you look at this? How do you use the prospect rating grid? You use that grid by, again, looking at all your nonprofit records and talking informally with your board, because board members often know a lot of people in the community, and they know, sometimes where they're at financially. You can also look at newspapers. I really looked at newspapers. I Googled people. I use different Zillow to see the value of their home. So it's a whole lot of ways that you can go about kind of determining a person's capacity to give. But once you do that, you have to identify, these are what you call your suspects. And what you're trying to do is come up with a list of your suspects. So, and then narrow it down to 5, right? And how are you going to narrow it down? You're going to narrow it down by actually plotting them out on this prospect rating grid. And so there's 2 things that you're looking at when you're doing this prospect rating grid. You're looking at their philanthropic capacity. That means more than just having a lot of wealth. It is a measure of a person's generosity. It includes the estimate of their net worth, their discretionary income, the number of children they have, their age, and most of all, prior gifts to your organization or any other charitable organization. That's why that CRM system is so nice, because you'll have access to that information. So on the vertical scale, and don't worry, you're going to get all of this in writing. So on the vertical scale, you're going to rate each of your best suspects on their long-term giving capacity from 1 to 9. So for instance, a person with a very modest history of giving would be rated lower, okay, than if a philanthropist who has been known to make 6 or 7-figure gifts. Generally, a 9 rating denotes a multi-million-dollar capacity, but you should really develop a scale that works for your community. And don't think that you don't have multi-million-dollar capacities in your community. I live in South Texas, in the 3rd poorest county in the United States, and we had people, well, one, but we're still good, that had a multi-million-dollar capacity. And so basically, you're going to look at the vertical, and if they are 1, then they're their weakest. If they're 9, that's the highest. And so you're going to map out where they're at. And then you're going to look at, do you have access to them? Are they involved in your nonprofit organization? And this is a measure of the person's closeness to your organization. So that's on that horizontal line, that horizontal going across the 1 to 9. And you're going to rate the combined value of their involvement with your nonprofit and your nonprofit's ability to assess that person. Just because you know that they are multi-million dollars, do you have access to them? You need to rate that as well. And here's a rule of thumb. Right over here, there's a rule of thumb. There's a point chart to help you determine this rating. So if it's a general public, it's only 1 point. I don't know them. None of my board members know them. We just generally know about them in the community. That's 1 point. If they're close to a board member, that's 2 points. If they do regular annual fund donors, 3 points. If they're regular program volunteers, 4 points. If they're a former board or committee member, 3 points. If they're a current board member or committee member, that's 4 points. If they previously given to your organization as a major donor, that's 6 points. They are hot. They are ready to go. And if their spouse are involved, that's 2 points. So you plot people out based on this grid, and then you add the total points for each person on the horizontal scale of the prospect rating grid. And using the 2 scales together allows you to identify the best major gift prospects. For instance, if someone's a 1 and a 1, that's your weakest. That's your weakest prospect. Don't waste your time. It's a cold prospect. it's not going to get you anywhere. Remember, your goal is to be strategic about how you spend your time because you're busy. And then if it's a nine out of one on the grid, they have a high capacity to give. Yeah, they have money, but it's a one. They have little interest in your organization. So again, it's an unlikely prospect. So don't focus your energy on that. If it's a 6 out of 6 on the grid, it's the beginning. It is the beginning of a major gift prospect range. Anywhere from 6 out of 6. Those are where your hot people are. And if they are a 1 out of 9, a 9 on the grid indicates a little capacity. So they have little capacity, but they have a high interest. You can say, okay, those will be my volunteers. They don't have a lot of money to give, but they have a very high interest. They may want to give time, and so those will be my volunteers. But the ideal prospect would be a 9 out of 9, right? So those are the ones that are hot. They're ready to go. I would say anything that is where you can see here on this grid, if they're in the warm area or the hot area, those are your top prospects. You're not going to try to go after anyone that's in the cold area. Don't waste your time. So plotting out your suspects on one single rating form is going to help you identify, your top 5. And I would even do this. You can do this as an organization as a whole to identify your top 5. But I like to say, I like to use the 5 by 5 approach. And that's where each board member comes up with 5 prospects and they map out this rating grid and come up with their top 5 prospects and then take them on a cultivation journey, touching those potential donors at least 5 times within a year. So it's pretty easy to remember. I call it the 5 by 5 cultivation plan. Again, being strategic, mapping it out, identifying who those top 5 prospects are, and then taking them on a journey in cultivation, 5 touches within the year. And that's going to get you your biggest bang for your buck, and it's going to ensure that you're not wasting your time because you don't have a lot of time to waste. And so I hope this is not too much information for you as the glazed over look. Every time I see this chart, and I did this chart, I don't know why. I thought of geometry, not my thing. Math turns me off. So I would do that. But it is a great tool to use so that you are not wasting your time. Okay. So you will be getting the directions on this right at the end of the presentation. I would drop the file for you. It'll be a PDF file that has the directions. So kind of like this is how the prospect rating grid form looks in its blankness. And this is what you'll use to map out those donors. So let's talk about it. If you had someone that was a 2 and a 5, that's a poor prospect. If you had someone that was a 6 or an 8, that's a marginal. You decide if you want to spend your time there. If you had someone that was perhaps a 9 and a 10, that's fair, and so it goes on and on. And so once you have that list, you can submit the names on this list for individual profiles and begin that confidential prospect strategy for each one of them. Again, I call it the 5 by 5 plan. You identify each, I call them accounts, right? 5 by 5 plan. So each board member and the CEO or the staff person have 5 people that's hot or warm on this prospect list. They take them through 5 cultivation events through the year and prep them for the ask. So 5 by 5, pretty easy to remember. So again, you're going to create a cultivation plan for them. And you create a cultivation plan for the organization. You can create a cultivation plan for at least the top 10 donors, but to not overwhelm yourself and your board members, I still like the 5 by 5. You're going to update the plan monthly. That means when they come to the board meeting, you're going to talk about, well, how did you cultivate your 5 this week? What did it look like? There's a reporting form that we'll talk about. And you're gonna, again, assign at least one specific task per donor to a volunteer or staff member. So let's say you got your 5 people and you want to do the 5 touches, right? So one of those touches, keep it simple. Um, Try to do at least it says one cultivation touch per day, and that's why I say keep it simple. One touch could be, picking up the phone and calling them. One touch could be inviting them in on a tour. One touch could be, updating them on what's going on with the organization, sending an email. One touch could be a birthday, sending a Valentine's Day card. All of these things are considered great cultivation tools. So again, face to face reigns king. Anytime that you can get someone to come in, um, you to go into their space and get a face to face meeting, or they come into your space, or you take them to lunch, that is a sign of a great relationship that is advancing. So face to face reigns king. Um, Tours of your nonprofit. If you are fortunate to have a building and a space, you want to bring them in. You want to ensure that they interact with your clients. You want to have them come in and do a tour. Again, best when your clients are there, but if not, getting them in the building is a simple, great way, great cultivation tool. You're going to ask them for advice and feedback. What I do know is where advice is given, money will soon follow. So you pick up the phone and say, you know what, we're working on this potential program, or we're developing a marketing strategy, and I know this might be in your wheelhouse. So I just really wanted to get some advice from you. Or you say, we are working on our public image, or trying to build our public image for our nonprofit. When I say this, and you can give them your mission statement or whatever it is, what comes to mind for you? Or what do you think we should be doing better? Asking them for advice. People get flattered by being asked for their advice. So that, again, where advice is given, money soon follows. You can also, pre-COVID, plan a fun and impactful activities with your clients if possible, such as arrange a day of caring or a garden day if you have a garden. All of these things where you can get your clients in front of your potential donors is going to make in a better engagement moment for them, because your client is your product. So you're getting your product in front of your donor. And I know it makes it a little bit harder with COVID, but keep this in mind as the world hopefully changes, and we start our journeys again. Small gatherings at board members or donors' homes, breakfast with the president of the board, calls on important days like their birthdays or Valentine's Day, or you can send a postcard, personalized notes. And most important, you're going to keep it informal and conversational. When you have these, it's getting to know you. It's discovery. It's cultivation. It's not very formal. You're getting to know them. So keep these things in mind when you're talking about cultivation. So really, the first move of cultivation is up to you, as the CEO, executive, or founder of your organization. Reach out, send a personalized note, send a letter of introduction. Let them know who you are. Let them know who your organization is. Ask board members to set up introductions. Then follow it with a call, and ask them for 30 minutes of their time. Again, ask for advice. Where advice is given, money follows. You can enjoy a coffee or lunch with them. You can invite them on a tour. You can get them involved. But it is you who's going to make that action happen. And most often, the donor is not going to come looking for you to start a relationship. It is actually the other way around. The first move is up to you. So swallow those nerves. And I know how it is. Sometimes you get very nervous, even if you're not asking for money. You're still like, well, why would they want to meet with me? Blah, 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 blah. You're doing those self-doubt things. No, they want to meet with you because you have a mission, and you're trying to help your clients, and you're actually trying to get them to be a part of the solution. And they want to be a part of the solution. Giving is a privilege, and you're offering them the opportunity to be the hero. So keep that in mind. So swallow those nerves, send that letter of introduction or the email of introduction, followed by a phone call, and get them involved. Let them know I'm not asking for money. Let them know that up front. This is cultivation. You're not asking for money, but you do want to develop a relationship with them and let them know about your nonprofit organization. So once you do that, you have to document your contact, a summary of who, what, where, when, and the outcome, because you'll forget, the whole point is discovery, getting to know the donor. So you don't want to forget, oh, this person is really passionate about literacy, or this person, this was their grandmother's experience, and this is why they're passionate about this cause. And so you have to document that contact, and you have to ensure that the team is well informed so it prevents mistakes. Again, you don't want 3 or 4 people trying to cultivate the same donor. That is not a good donor experience. So you have to keep the team abreast. And then you have to record the next steps. What are we going to do next to move this relationship forward? So what are you going to document? You're going to document after a face-to-face visit with them. You're going to document after meetings where the prospects are discussed. So let's say if you go to another meeting and you hear a discussion about the prospect, go back and document that. Because sometimes that's information that you may need or need to refer to later on. You're going to document any significant communication. You're going to document after you present a proposal. You're going to document, you will document when you learn new information that might help with the strategy. Because remember, you're being strategic. You document a next step, a next contact date, and then when an action results in a move. So you're going to document that relationship and that journey. It's very clear. Sorry about that. And so there's a donor contact report template that I will be sharing with you, but it captures all of that information as well as, points of when you cultivated them or stewarded them and recognized them, and any next steps that you want to have happen for that donor. So let's strategize. We're going to take a few minutes here. We're going to go over the scenario, and you're going to get some engagement here. You're going to be in the chat. So we're going to go over that scenario. We're going to talk about what are the next 3 steps to cultivate this prospect. What is the goal of the cultivation for this prospect? What will the proposal be for? And what obstacles or barriers do you anticipate? So here's a little story, and I want you to put it in the chat. What do you think should be the next steps for this donor? What do you think the journey should lead? So Larry Harrington has been a board member for 5 years. He is an extremely successful local. He's the owner and extremely successful local auto dealership, which has been in his family for generations. In 2012, the dealership expanded, doubling in size. In Larry's opinion, education is the single most important factor in a young person's development. Larry has helped as a youth competition judge, and he's come in twice a month to assist with homework help and tutoring. Larry has been an annual donor for 7 years and has always given $5,000 to the organization. So, with that in mind, what do you think the next 3 steps to cultivating this prospect should be? And what should be the goal of that process? And what obstacles or barriers do you anticipate? Let's put that in the comments to see in the chat to see if your mind is working. So remember, let's talk about Larry again. Larry's been on the board for 5 years. He has a successful dealership. He's come in, he's volunteered with the organization. He's been a judge in one of your program events. And he's given the organization $5,000 every year for 7 years. Do you think that he's ready for the next level? And what does that next level look like? Don't be afraid. Dream big. Good one, Amy. Maybe the next step could be building dedicated to Larry that focuses on education. Yes, that's a great idea because he's a board member. He's been given 5,000 for 7 years, very successful. He wants to see his name on a building. Acknowledging and asking for advice on bumping high donors to the next level and what the next level should be, and follow up with the number later. That is good. Stephanie is asking his advice and feedback on a new education project. Yes. And then maybe the next step may be donating a vehicle to the youth or increasing his gift amount. Yes. Now y'all brains are working. So we got a building, we got donating, we got him sharing the next prospects for next potential gifts. You got him talking about bumping up gifts. So this is how your brain has to work. And as you're documenting and laying out these scenarios, think about this. Perhaps bringing in some of his major customers as donors. Yes, this is good. And so now that you kind of get the flow of where you have to think and have these scenarios and brainstorm around these people, Larry is hopefully some of you have some Larrys in your organization. If not, that is okay. You're building your Larrys. And then once they get to that point, you will know exactly how you want to leverage Larry's connections and take it. I'm wish looking for a Larry now, aren't we all? But Larry is out there. Larry is out there for all of us. And so as you're building your board, that's one of the things. Look for your Larry. We're all looking for them and build those relationships with them. So send Larry my way. Yeah, I wish I could send Larry your way, but it is possible. And the whole goal is to make sure that this is going along on your journey. And so the resources that I am going to share with you in the chat is going to be the donor forms, the contact forms, as well as the engagement and cultivation tracking worksheet and the directions for using the prospect rating form. So I'll be sharing that with you. But let me just say this, please just don't jump straight to the ask. You know, cultivation is not a step that can be skipped. It lays the foundation for the ask. It is the gateway for building a relationship with your donor, communicating with them, and ultimately moving them towards the ask. So this is a track record that I used to cultivate for over 15 years as a CEO. My board raised over $2 million each year, and they had a give or get policy of $5,000. And be reminded that my organization was located along the Mexico-Texas border in the third poorest county in the United States. And here's what my clients are saying about me. And this is from Palm Valley Animal Society, the board president. When we brought Sabrina on board to help coordinate with our nonprofit major annual fundraiser, Puppy Love, she took on the event to a whole new level. And as a matter of fact, within a few days, she has scheduled specific responsibilities for everyone to ensure they were targeted on success. And they highly recommend me. And I say this because this was their highest fundraiser ever. I'm pretty organized and I'm pretty skilled forward. And so that now that we've covered advanced cultivation techniques, I would like to invite you to join me for Jumpstart Your Nonprofit. I do have a 6-week course, and that 6-week course really is for those who are brand new to nonprofit or burnt out, because I got to a point that I was burnt out, or scared to ask for money. And it has 6 modules, and I'll go through this really quickly. Module 1 is engaging your board, helping you find your Larrys in the world. Module 2 is creating your case for support, how to tell your nonprofit story, identifying who your prospects would be, because there is a very strategic and formulated way of identifying who those prospects will be outside of the grid. And then how to build a relationship with your donors, that's cultivation, which we've been talking about. And then ultimately, how to make that fundraising ask and saying thank you. A lot of people get nervous around that fundraising ask. And so this online course really focuses in on how to secure major gifts, even if you don't have a large staff. It's how to engage your board around that support, how to fundraise and get major gifts, even without experience planning and fundraising, how to raise money when your organization has no previous donors or no previous fundraising expenses, and how to develop a systematic approach to deepening relationships with current donors or prospective donors. Um, and then it really helps you get super focused and organized with a fundraising roadmap. And then we have about $2,000 worth of bonuses that we give: the sphere of influence, the list generator board exercise, the cultivation plan, the stewardship calendar, a gift acceptance policy, because it amazes me how many people don't have a gift acceptance policy. You're going out soliciting gifts, but you don't have a policy around that. Board thank you script, a LinkedIn interview on how to use LinkedIn to find donors, and planned giving interview, because ultimately you want people to move up the chain. You don't want them to be a one-time gift. You want them to be a legacy gift. You want to have an endowment where they can invest in your endowment. And so the regular price for the course is $797, but I'm giving $400 off if you register within 72 hours of this webinar. So you have 3 days to think about it and you get it off. And I'm only taking 6 slots. That means you get this course for $397. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be in an intimate environment, and your input on the process will be noted. Also, for a limited time, I have a payment plan of $97 down and 4 payments of $87 due at the completion of the program. So, and if you enroll in 24 hours, so if you enroll by tomorrow, I'll upgrade that to a group coaching packet, which means that I will meet with you once a week and go around each module, and you'll be able to answer and ask any questions that you have. And that's going to be valued at $1,200. And that upgrade offer, you're going to have accountability, you're going to have coaching, you're going to have specific fundraising coaching, community, and resources that you can tap into. And so what makes this program different? It is an online training. There is strategy around it. You're going to get actual how-tos. It's not theory. You're going to actually get the how to do this, and you're going to get coaching from me, and the price. You can't beat the price. And if you're interested, you can go to www.supportingworldhope.com and shop. And now we're going to open it up for Q&A. And what I am going to do is stop the share so you can see my beautiful face. And then what I'm going to do for you is drop all of those sample documents into the chat and give you time to download them while I answer any questions that you may have. So if anyone has any questions, now would be the time to ask any specific questions. And don't be afraid to ask questions because this is the time. Again, I love giving my opinion and my advice. I love showing what actually works when it comes to fundraising. So if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. There's no charge to ask a question.
Sabrina, I have one question.
Yes, Amy.
When you were discussing giving donors gifts and stuff like that, what if they can't accept them?
If they can't accept them, usually there's a value, because I've had that happen to me before as well. Usually there's a value around what they can't accept. For example, I have like kind of stewarded people like, let's say, economic development director. And I think he couldn't accept a gift valued at more than $50. I never gave gifts valued at more than $50. I'm literally talking about a token gift. So I had a donor who collected ceramic shoes, right? So if I was in a store and I saw a ceramic shoe that was $5, I would get that. I'm not talking about like expensive, gifts or anything like that. I would not advise you to do expensive gifts. Most donors don't like that because they think you're taking away from the mission in order to buy them something expensive. So we're literally talking a token gift. It could be something that the kids make in your situation. donors love like arts and crafts. One of the things that I did that a donor really liked in the cultivation process was I got a picture of the donor, and then I got one of the kids that was pretty artistic, and they drew that picture of the donor, what their interpretation of that picture was. And then I went to Dollar General and I got a frame and I framed it and I gave it to the donor. It cost the child time, and it cost $6 to get the frame. And so we're not talking about a lot of information.
No,
A lot or expensive stuff. Please don't.
I see what you're saying. I just recently, I bought a coffee mug because the donor likes coffee. So I was going to give that to the donor in a bag, of course, but it was refused because they can't take any any gifts.
Okay.
So I could see where definitely a child-made project would be easier.
Yeah, would be easier, and they'll probably accept that. So I've dropped all the documents. Let me know if there's one that I'm missing. You got the prospect rating grid there with the instructions. You also have the donor contact that you can download right now, as well as three, the Excel tracking form. So everybody should have everything that they need. Does anybody else have any specific questions that they might have? If not, I am going to say thank you. I'm going to wait just one more minute to make sure everybody has downloaded that form. I want to say thank you for joining me live and taking advantage of getting those sample documents. I'm going to encourage you, if you're not on my mailing list, to sign up for my mailing list. You can do that on my website. And you can join my Facebook group at Nonprofit Professionals Exchange. So thank y'all very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all have a blessed day. I will see y'all on the other side. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.